So my wife has been complaining about her brakes vibrating when she hits them and the steering wheel shaking a little bit for a lot longer than I care to admit. This time on Low Boost, we're going to replace your front brake pads and rotors. A good telltale sign to know if your rotors are warped is if you get a lot of vibration during braking. And a good way to know if it's the front rotors or the back rotors is if the steering wheel also vibrates while you're braking. And in this car, it seems to be doing that. That gives you a good indication it's your front brakes. If you get vibrations and the steering wheel really doesn't vibrate, there's a better chance it's your rear brakes. And I'll probably do the rear brakes soon, but in this video, we're just gonna cover the fronts because that's a lot more common for replacement. Our good friends at SCP Euro are able to get you all the parts you really need, and you can search by your car, part numbers, however you want to do it, but I got pads, sensors, rotors are underneath, and those are heavy. So we'll get started on taking all this stuff out and get started on jacking the car up. All right, first thing I'm gonna do, jack the car up a little bit, but not too much that so when I go to crack these off, they'll break, but enough to support the car. Crack, 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 crack. I don't have my good Ugga-Dugga, I got this guy. I hope it should work though. I already have a jack stand underneath the car, but I'm going to just keep it supported on that as well. I always hit the stuff I'm going to take off with PB Blaster shortly before I take it all the way off. I hit this here, the two caliper brackets in the back. Pretty sure this is a 6mm Allen. Whew. I always get nervous with like stuff that dealers worked on prior because they love to over torque the absolute snot out of stuff. And sometimes things pop off, but they seem to have done a proper torque job on this. Before you get started on a project like this, you're gonna need to get reverse TORX, more specifically an E16 to get the caliper brackets off. I'm also gonna use a breaker bar for that. Okay, so now that's there. Let's use a regular ratchet to get it off. So just because I'm a little bit of a stickler, not everybody does this. When they take the caliper off, I like to keep everything supported. So I actually just stick a bungee cord hook through this and wrap it around the top like this. And that just kind of supports the caliper from hanging off of the hose, which we don't want to do. I'll hit it with the blaster too. Might take a little bit, but. A little bit more banging. Came loose. All right, I'm gonna hit this with anti-seize so we don't have to worry about that again. Next, we'll take the pads off and then we'll put the rotor on. So a couple different things when you're taking these off. Obviously, you gotta take the pads out. And you can usually do that by using a little pry bar action here and popping them out this way. But in the back here is a clip, and this clip also holds them on. So once you pop these off, I slid the clip out and everything kind of came out easy. See if we can do that here. There, one side. Trying not to hit the actual pistons. These are 4-piston ones. I know I think the M Performance brakes are 6-piston and a little bigger. Not really concerned. I'm surprised that the rotors were warped to begin with because maybe my wife doesn't really drive this thing too hard. This clip in the back has to come out. So I stick this in here to push it down. That clip, and then I should push it. There we go. This wiggles, came right out. And the pad should come right out after that. This pad has the wear sensor on it. But you got a new one of those, so we'll just pop that off. There. So there's the sensor. The clip for the sensor. This one should come right out like that. We are going to replace the sensor on this as well, so I didn't really care if it rips off or anything. That's going to come out. That gets stuck down. So we'll move that over to the side for now. This episode is brought to you by Extreme Powerhouse. Whether you have a BMW, a Kia Stinger, an Audi, or a Ford Mustang, make sure you check them out. They have a number of performance parts for a ton of different makes and models. And if you go on there and use my coupon code that I'll put in the description below, you'll get access to some extra special discounts. So I actually don't have the proper caliper compressor, but you're gonna wanna do it some way, somehow. So I got these just like hand pump vice grips. And it doesn't take a ton of pressure, but it's really hard to do by hand. That compresses the pistons enough to get the new brake pads on there, because the new brake pads are considerably more pad life on them. So it's going to be tougher to get it on the rotor if you don't do this. And you could damage the rotor if you are just trying to force it on instead of having it glide on nice and smooth. So it doesn't take much. You can see, I don't know if you can see right there on camera. I got one. So the sensor wraps around up and through here. And there's like a clip here. Ooh, nice and dusty. Take this off. This actually pops out, and then there's some pull tabs on it. Shouldn't be too hard to get off. There, like that. Our new sensor here, plugged right in. Crack, apple, snapple, pop. And BMW is great because they have all the sensors, like where it's supposed to be on here, goes through, and like everything is supposed to be where it was, right? This thing pops in here. Pop that in. Run this under here. We are in tight quarters here, so I'm going to try to do this as best I can. You want to make sure the pad that you have that's on the sensor side has the groove cut out in it like that. I don't know if you can see that. See that groove cut out there? Yeah, that you want on the sensor side. So that actually goes in here. Things there. You also want to be mindful of your guide pins, because those can pop off too. But so these guide pins here, you want to make sure the sliders are in decent shape. These are, and that are there. And then in the back, this is actually where the sensor goes, right in here. Put that clip on, and then we'll stick the sensor straight in there. Clock in like that, with the nub facing on the inside, but that's how it wears. That's how it senses the wear. And this goes in here. Now I'm going to leave that hanging there. I'll put the other pad on. The other pad does not have that sensor spot. So I also found it was easier to put the pads on and then the retaining pin in, but taking it out, I found that it was easier to pop the pads off and then take the retaining pin on the back off. I tried to do it the other way first, and I just found like that way was easier. So now that that's on, we'll put our retaining pin back on. It's on. She's on. Alright, now let's do the rotor. That was a cool sound. Before I do the rotor, a little peace of mind for me. Clean the hub up. And I'm going to put some anti-seize on it. That way we have an easier time getting it off next time.
That's what she said.
The M Performance brakes have side-specific rotors, but the non-M ones, I looked everywhere, do not. So it doesn't matter what rotor you put on driver or passenger. If you have a non-M car, if you have an M Performance brake kit, you are gonna need to make sure you have the proper rotor with your which side of the car it's on. Now, because it's compressed, the pads should go on nice and smooth like that. Oh boy, that is an extra step that you should feel good about doing. You definitely don't want to force it in, because stripping these bolts, we'll be doing a different project. That's how you turn a 1 hour project into a 3 hour one. I got to look up the torque specs. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what they are, but I'll put them in the, I'll put them right here so you guys can see, because you want to make sure you torque down the caliper pretty good. Then we'll go bed the brakes too. Oh, I don't know about y'all, but that like torque wrench click is one of the most satisfying things. There it is. I am not a fan of just spinning lug nuts on with the impact. I want to make sure it is not cross-threaded, and I make sure by getting these things down almost halfway before I actually put an impact to it. It's just a weird thing for me. If you've ever accidentally cross-threaded a lug nut, you're probably in the same boat as me. Now, we'll take the jack stand out from underneath it, and we'll lower the car. I also got these jack pucks, perfect for BMWs. I'll put a link to them in the description below. They perfectly allow you to jack your car up nice and easy. And don't forget to torque your specs down here on your wheels to like 90 foot-pounds, because that Ryobi is great, but it ain't gonna get you 90 foot-pounds. I feel like it gets me like 60. So we'll go ahead and torque these to 90, and we'll be done. All right, that's all done. We'll go repeat the same thing on the other side, but on the passenger side, you don't have to do a brake sensor. That's only on the driver's side. I won't bore you with that. We'll go do that now, and then we'll come back to wrap it up. I didn't go super crazy to bed the brakes. All I did was I went 60 miles per hour and then went hard on the brakes to slow back down to about 5 miles an hour, and I repeated that about 5 or 6 times. You don't want to do that on a highway because obviously you're going to have to come to a stop. So find a place where there's traffic circles or something like that where you could come down and slow down to a good pace. But my hunch was correct because the vibrations completely went away. So happy wife, happy me, happy life. Hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. I have a couple of other videos I've done on this 5 Series if you're interested in learning more about it. I did an intake, tune, and I put some wheels on it at one point. I have hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel, so if you're into this kind of stuff, make sure to hit the subscribe button because I have a ton of different projects that I've worked on, working on, or will be working on in the future. In the meantime, check these videos that I already have ready to go.